Welcome back, everyone. We're so excited to be here again this week, sharing our stories and our experiences on this healing journey. Delighted to be diving into the world of empathy, what it's like to be a highly sensitive person in a very harsh world sometimes, but overwhelming and overstimulating. So, we're going to talk about how we deal, what it's like, our journey to discover ourselves, our sensitivities, and how we cope with it. So, we hope you stick around. Well, awesome. I love that music, don't you? It's so awesome. Thank you, Maggie. You're like so good at this.
Oh my god, hey, thanks. Thanks for doing a very lovely job on the intro. That's
Ah,
great.
thank you.
I'm super excited to be talking about the topic of empathy and how we've navigated being highly sensitive people in, like you said, an often harsh world.
Mm-hmm. But before we dive in, would you like to ground and breathe?
Only always.
Awesome. So let's just take a moment and send our energy down into the earth. And breathe. Become aware of your body, the sensations. Just drawing your consciousness down into your heart so you can hear the love, receive it with love. One more nice deep breath to connect. And release. Well, thank you. So, I do like how empathy is talked about more. I'm not so much. I do like definitions and stuff, but I kind of would rather just us talk about our experience or how we see what empathy is. So, you kick us off, Maggie. What is empathy to you?
Hmm. I think empathy to me is the ability to really be there with someone who's going through something and sharing often a very difficult experience or even like a very joyful experience. Uh, to really put yourself in their shoes and to feel the energy of whatever it is that they're going through and whatever they're sharing, uh, to provide a sense of support and community and camaraderie with them as they go through whatever it is that they're going through. Uh, and it very much feels like a gift and a curse because to receive such empathy from someone, especially when you're going through something so hard and difficult in life, it eases the pain so much. But on the flip side, when you are a naturally very empathetic person and you don't have a lot of boundaries up and there's a lot of input and energies being thrown at you from all types of people because you don't know how to stop that this skill of empathy and feeling deeply, that's when it can get really hard. So to me, it really feels like a double-edged sword, but also one of the greatest gifts of being a human and one of the greatest gifts that we can offer each other and to help really heal ourselves and this planet.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. How would you describe empathy for you?
So, my understanding of empathy growing up was extreme sensitivity and having a visceral, physical kind of feeling or connection while somebody is sharing. Like you're feeling it in your body, what they're expressing to the best of your ability. Like your mind will come up with things to relate to. Like, oh, I've had that feeling, or I've been in situations where I've had that. So you're like bringing that up. And so you resonate with them. right? And there is an absolute like energetic connection. And so, because it differs from sympathy, because sympathy is universal. I think, well, actually, probably not everybody can be sympathetic, especially if you're a sociopath, but you have those tendencies, which is it's fine, whatever. But almost everybody can be sympathetic.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you've had that loss or that you're going through this, right? Like, people can be sympathetic and listen and offer and hold space and do all of the same lovely things, but they're not actually feeling it with you. They're observing you have these feelings. Whereas the empath is going through it with you, right?
Yeah.
I used to cry when other people started crying, not because I was sad, but because I was just feeling it. And so I've even experienced that with my body when I do healing work. If someone starts crying or there's something that happens, sometimes I will cry. I don't have any emotion attached to it. It's just my body relating what's happening on the table. So for me, I've turned it into a gift because I grew up thinking it was a curse. But it feels like a curse when you don't have those boundaries, just like you said, because it confuses the system. It doesn't know what is there, what is mine and what is someone else's.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know you're an empath and you're just a really sensitive person, you don't have anybody around you to help you label those things or help you identify your system, your sensitivities and all that, you don't actually know what's yours. So it's not until you start working with boundaries where you get to hold space for yourself and be like, and check in and be like, is that mine or is that someone else's? How was I feeling just 5 minutes ago? I was fine. And then Joe Blow walked in the door and now I'm fucking angry. So, but then it's really good information. You don't just continue to be angry, right? You just identified the source of it, and then that's where the boundary comes in. Like, oh, wait, not mine. I am in a good mood. Remember, I am blessed. So
That's such a weird experience, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah, it's super weird. Like, just you offering that question to me a couple years ago of like, how were you feeling right before this person entered the space? That alone is just game changing. And I'm like, oh, I was absolutely chilling. I was minding my business. I felt great. 0.2 seconds later, I am anxious and confused. And why do I have a sinking feeling in my chest? I was just doing this one thing. What? Hello? So yeah. Sorry, I hope I didn't derail
No.
you.
In fact, I want you to keep going. So once you had that awareness, once you started asking yourself that question, what'd you do next? What was the first tool? Do you remember? Like, how do you deal? How do you cope?
I think, just the awareness that
That
arises
helps.
from asking that question, I feel like kind of helps.
Detach.
Yeah, it helps detach and return back to your own energy. There was some mental magic stuff that you
Yes.
had shared with me. That was one of the first things that you taught me as well, because you came to me and we started meditating together, and you're like, you're an empath, right? And I'm like, what? Ew, what is that? I've heard that thrown around on social media everywhere. Like, that's just like some airy fairy, like everybody uses that word and everybody's slapping it on everyone. That doesn't mean shit.
And I was like, okay.
Believe what you want.
You'll get it eventually.
Yeah. But as it turns out, call it what you want. But I do fit the bill of being a very empathic person and feeling things from other people, and have done it unconsciously and unintentionally for a very long time. And it's disrupted my system. So yeah, after asking that question, how was I feeling a minute ago? And if I was feeling fine and there was a change in my environment externally that seemed to have caused a change in my energy, then sometimes depending on the situation, like if it's someone who walks in with like a lot of funky energy, then I'll do kind of like a visual protection thing in my mind. One of the first protection spells you told me about was visualizing yourself in like the middle of space, and you wrap yourself up in like your favorite blanket that you could ever imagine. And you just wrap yourself up in like this little burrito and you're just like floating out in the cosmos. And then once you're wrapped up in the blanket, you send these arrows of light out all around you. So that way you can see all of your surroundings. And then you put mirrors, just like a whole bunch of mirrors around the arrows and around yourself.
Facing outward.
Facing outwards. So that way
reflect.
anything, yeah. So any energy externally will be reflected back. And so that way you don't take on any of this energy. And yeah, just doing like that little protection spell and just kind of repeating the mantra like, I am safe, I am grounded, I am protected. I don't have to feel anybody else's energy but my own right now. Just like repeating those things has really helped me to feel back into my own energy. And then I've been doing this thing recently where on days where I've spent a lot of time with people, at the end of the day, if I feel like I took on a lot of other people's stuff.
Yes, that can happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll usually do just like that little like protection spell for myself, but then I'll kindly just ask for anybody else's energy that has entered my system and my energetic field to be kindly released, returned to them if need be, or sent down into the earth for healing, cleansing, and releasing, or up to the divine for the same. Mm-hmm. And usually once I ask that and I kind of have like a visualization with it of just like the energy flowing out of me, I can feel my own energy kind of coming back and it feels like a big sigh of relief. So those little small mental things I think have been some of the biggest aids. And call it placebo if you want. But for me, it grounds me and it brings me back to center. And I often feel a lot less anxious after I do that. Because I feel like I pick up on a lot of, I don't know, like other people's anxiety. Because I think that's what I was hyper attuned to towards like my parents, was I was trying to like pick up on my mom's anxiety or my dad's anxiety. And that was like what I needed to be super aware of and to try to fix in order to receive love. So that's a whole thing. But there's that for you.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting being really sensitive because most people on this planet are not this sensitive, which is why it was so easy for me to feel responsible for everybody and not know to be enmeshed and like be codependent and make sure everybody's okay, you know, because I didn't know any better. I was just a little emotional sponge. I would pick up on everybody's shit and then I would feel responsible for it, right? I have to carry it or fix it or help them or make them feel better so, well, I can receive love just like that, you know, and be taken care of and have my needs met. But it did not serve me the older I got. It helped me survive. So thank you, you know, old programs. But when I got to a point where I'm like, this is not good for me, that's when you become open to it. But there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to understand what this is like. I even my brother's like, man, I just let that shit go. You know, just get over it. I heard just get over it all the time growing up. I'm like, if I could, I would, but I don't know how. And I feel it so deeply. It went so deep inside. I'm just going to repress it. Fine. Look at me. I let it go, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So, whoo.
Yeah. The get over it. Why are you so sensitive? It's not.
And to be made to
not
feel
that deep.
Wrong.
Oh, I hate it's not that deep.
Oh, that is really bad. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
That one. Like for you, like you might have had like the first 7 layers of your skin like cut. That cut me to the bone. You know, like that I feel like teasing and practical jokes and making somebody the butt, you know, the fall guy, the one, the laughing stock. And it's like not funny. It was never funny to me. Somebody actually getting hurt emotionally or physically is not humorous. Accidental things, like when you forget how to walk and you're like, oh my God, I just had like a human error. Like that I can see. You can't help like the laugh reaction when people fall down. It's just, I don't know, it's just fucking funny. But the on purpose shit.
Yeah.
The malicious.
Yeah, that's what bothers me.
Like, mean-spirited jokes because they need to laugh at somebody because they hate themselves so much. I don't know. I try, but I just can't. I'm too sensitive. And you know what? I'm okay with it at this point. I am okay with it. I don't blame or judge anybody for their proclivities and what they find humorous. I just don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we need sensitive people.
Yeah.
Sensitive people make some of the most beautiful art
for real
on this planet.
And
arguably
healers.
All of it.
Mm-hmm.
And healers.
Mm-hmm.
We're so needed.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly as we are.
Yeah. And mind you, statistically, from my understanding, from the things that I have read, like in the Empath's Survival Guide, forgive me, I don't know the name of the author. Look it up. You have Google and all of the things. But yeah, the Empath's Survival Guide is chock full of amazing information, helps you identify, because there's different levels too. There's different sensitivities. You can be more sensitive to animals or plants or people or emotions or this. Like, there's so many different variations, just like everything else. There's degrees, right? And it's just kind of curious and fun to figure out where you are, and honor that. But because of that, like, when you have this, you do feel bad and like, this is terrible and awful. But ultimately, all the stuff that you called placebo, you didn't call placebo, but you're like, call it what you will, because some people who aren't sensitive, they wouldn't get the same results as we do.
My mind still calls it placebo sometimes. My logical brain, it just wants to be like, okay.
Great, take that sugar pill, because it doesn't matter, because you feel better.
Yeah.
And that is the whole point. I meditate, I have boundaries, I do all of this work.
Yeah.
So I can feel better living in my body. Because before, it was a nightmare. It was mean and angry, and it was a terrible place to live. It was awful feeling alive, being alive, And it wasn't until I learned to honor myself and hold space for myself and know and get to love and figure out my system where I'm like, oh, I don't have to be miserable. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm not responsible for everybody's feelings? Since when?
Yeah, that one. That was a brain breaker for me.
That was a hard one.
Yeah.
Where I'm not responsible for how anybody takes my truth. So long as I speak from my heart and I speak my truth, my perspective, how anybody receives that, that's on them. That was hard. Probably, I'm still working on it, but I'm so much better. And it feels so much better because the more that you can hold space for you and only have the energy that is yours, you can create space for more joy. But it's also why your environment is really important. I recognize that from when I was young. Like, my environment has always affected my mental health.
Absolutely.
When I was in high school, like 9th, 10th grade, I was being bullied for being overweight, and I was so depressed. I had no friends, and I did not want to exist, And it was like I got to this point where I had a 1.7 GPA. My 10th grade year, I failed earth science because the teacher was terrible and boring, and I just didn't give a shit. I missed like 30 days of school. I missed an egregious amount of school. I'm surprised they let me like pass. But I was like to my mom, I'm like, I have to transfer schools or I'm going to die. She was like, okay. So Spirit led me, and I found the private school, the Catholic school that had all girls and a uniform. And I'm like, this is great, right? So I changed my environment. I found my own resilience and my way, and my aunt wrote me a recommendation letter, and I got a scholarship, and I got myself into a new place. By my senior year, I was there for 2 years, junior and senior year. Senior year, I had straight A's.
Wow.
I am very sensitive. So I don't have a lot of friends because you have to like have a certain amount of respect and care and vulnerability to be really close to me because I am, it's a lot. But
Yeah, I can't really hide anything when I'm in a space with you.
No, you can't. I can see, which also pisses people off. But that's one of the gifts of being an empath. I can't help it. I can't help when I can look at somebody and then my body starts to feel things and I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? How you feeling today? And I just start asking questions and all of a sudden crying happens. People are telling me their whole life stories, because you'll recognize empaths, we attract people who trust us and want to tell us everything.
Yeah.
We also attract the vampires who want to just suck our life force out of us because it's so delicious and we give really good quality attention.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what were some of the signs throughout your life that you were an empath? Because I feel like that's one of the main ones. Like if people tell you, oh my God, you're a really good listener.
Oh,
and
all
just
the
like
time.
wanting
Yes.
to open up
Uh-huh.
to you, like even if like you're just a stranger that you just met, you're like, why do I want to tell you everything?
Uh-huh.
This is so weird. Could be a sign.
In college, when I was an RA, I would have people spend the night because they're going through something, and I would just like light candles and be like, all right, just tell me about it. And then they would leave the next day and be like, I feel so much better.
That's so cute.
Yeah. I would either like do tarot readings or I'd give them a neck massage. I used to get rid of headaches. I can get rid of headaches, like a little neck massage and head massage. It's really fucking great. So yeah, I've always had that, oh, you're such a good listener. And people just tell me everything. I don't try. Josh used to joke, my party trick is making people cry. It's like, oh, don't talk to Nicki unless you feel like crying. I'm like, I don't mean to. Also, before I had boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also really good for the empath. You don't need to ask everybody how they're doing. You don't have to.
I need to hear
Take
that.
it on.
I still do that.
I have gotten so much better. That's why I have the rule. You know my rule. If you want me or my service or whatever, you have to ask.
Yeah.
Because I was just giving to everybody, and I rarely got anything back, or even in the same realm of balance. Like it just wasn't there, right? And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why does everybody leave me? Like all this stuff, and I'm like, I thought I was great. They said I was great. Were they lying? And it's just crazy. But yeah, I stopped giving to literally everybody, and I became more discerning. And I decided, because of the therapy and the group work and everything, it's like, oh, I only give to people who have a genuine inquiry. People are actually interested, then I'll share and I'll tell. Or if they ask me, hey, can you talk with me, or can you listen, or can we talk about this? Like, love to, but you have to ask. That's just that was my boundary. That became my rule, because otherwise I would give to everybody. But that's too draining. Especially if I'm not getting refilled or the energy isn't balancing. Also,
Yeah.
self-care. Really hugely important.
Yeah.
For a sensitive being. Even before like leaving the house, like doing that protection spell before you go into stores or you go to a family event where there's some,
I use that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You use the tools that work for you, that help you feel better. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it. They don't need to judge it because they're not you. Nobody knows what it's like to be you besides you. Nobody can tell you who you are. If they're telling you who you are, you're just reflecting them. And that was another really helpful tool that I started using, which is whatever anybody says to you, they're actually saying about themselves. So that's how I just started to look at it. Because like, you can't see me. You actually don't know. You don't know who I am. You can only know me as well as you know yourself. And I'll be surprised if you can actually see me. I stopped expecting people to see me. So now when it happens, I'm like, oh my God, you can see me? That's so cool. Oh, thank you so much. It feels really nice. But I don't expect it from most people. I just had to come to accept that.
I feel like on that boundary that you set for yourself, it doesn't only serve you, but it definitely serves everyone else as well. Because one of the harder lessons for me to accept along my codependence journey, because I feel like my codependence and people pleasing and empathic tendencies are all very intertwined and intermingled together.
Totally.
One of the hard things for me to grasp when I was really diving into boundaries and that work was I feel like we maybe talked about this a little bit in season 1 on our boundaries episodes. But yeah, the real hard one for me was that it's crossing other people's boundaries when
I hate that.
when you're giving or like being the empathic person, but also being simultaneously codependent. The way that you get your needs met is by making everyone else feel good as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
But that is actually a boundary crossing because you're trying to regulate other people's moods for them. They're not asking for that.
Mm.
And as much as you were unconsciously, and it does partially come from a loving space of like, oh, how are you? Let me, like, I feel like a part of you did want everybody around you to feel good. You wanted them to feel happy. You wanted them to feel nurtured and supported. And that's beautiful.
It came from a loving place.
Right. But the shadow side of that, the flip side of that is that was how you felt good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so holding quotes around it, that space and giving that space to people that aren't asking for it is a crossing of their boundaries as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's just this huge hodgepodge of, yeah.
They didn't ask you to open that can.
Yeah.
They didn't want to necessarily air that out. You're right. It was totally, and it was like, but also what's interesting about boundaries is you don't know you've crossed it until you've crossed it sometimes. Because if it wasn't already established, and I hate stepping in it. I hate making people feel bad or upset or anything. I'm like, fuck. Like I'm so sorry. Like there's never my intention to hurt anybody. And I would accidentally hurt people with my truth or my questions, you know? And so I had to learn how to have the boundaries around it, which is why I have my rules. It's also how I know if people are open, because I got really tired of giving to people that can't receive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That became really crazy draining.
Yeah. That's like a self-sabotage technique right there.
Yeah. And it actually, for my system, doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Because like if I connect and resonate and I bring in all this energy and all this light and stuff, and there's no opening, I'm like, I'm still feeling okay, but it feels incomplete and it doesn't feel right. You know, I'm really into efficiency, which is why I'm the healer's healer. I love healers and sensitive people because there's openness, there's willingness, there's like, you know, reflection and feedback and all of this. And like, they're willing to do it. They're willing to open and receive and ask. Because then it's just like, ooh, party's on. You know, so I started to realize the difference between giving to people who wanted it, people who were just taking it just because they could, and the people that really needed it and were asking. And I have come to the conclusion that the people that need it and they want it and they ask and they're open, you're my people. Like, let's work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting my time and energy. It just, yeah. So, but that's just mine. That's how I've set myself up to work.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think that has been a very helpful model for me for like kind of what to strive for. Like I know the rules that you set yourself, they've been helpful in guiding for me and figuring out like my own boundaries and what rules I need to set for myself with people.
Awesome. So. Then it's working. Leading by example. Yes. Be the light. Be the change you wish to see. And then just delight when other people are like, ooh, I like that. I'm going to try that. I'm like, yes, it's working. I'm sharing my gifts by being me. So,
yeah. And, you know, it feels so much better to give when you know that someone really wants it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's very satisfying.
It is very satisfying. And in my experience, the people that are truly open to receive what I have to offer are really great givers in return. And it just... I don't know. It feels so good when you just like find those people that are just like, oh, I have so much love and empathy to share. Oh my God, I have so much love and empathy to share.
It's wild. Like when you get a room of empaths who are conscious and on a healing path, so high. I've been so spiritually high without any kind of substance. just on the life, the light, the connection, like mind blowing. The love and just how it just overflows. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is the best drug ever.
One of the perks of being highly sensitive.
It is. It is because you can feel everything so deeply. Also,
Yeah.
why you need more protection. You need more respectful people about your boundaries. They don't have to understand it, they just have to listen. Like I gave you the example before with like Josh. Like we were watching like Impractical Jokers or these like videos. I don't like when like boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, like when they like played pranks on each other that are mean
Oh,
spirited.
I
Like he
hate
was
those
watching
videos
some of
so
those
much.
like prank videos, and I'm like, that's not funny. Why is that funny to blow flour under the bathroom while they're taking a shit? Why is that funny? And she's just dying laughing. He was laughing too, like the guy, and I'm like, that's you guys. I'm so glad that works out for you. But that if that was me, so I go to Josh. I'm like, I'm so glad that you don't like practical jokes, and he goes, oh, actually, I do. I'm like, what, really? He goes, yeah, I just know you don't. So I don't do them. I'm like, oh my God, I love you more. Right? So he's like, he knows that and he respects that. I'm like, I hope he finds somebody one day that he can like, play with that. But it's just I just can't because I think I was hurt too much by quote unquote jokes growing up. So I became ultra sensitive and being like, no. But I can see some of the humor of things.
Yeah.
I can. I just feel too much for the person who's getting made fun of.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that the people who say that they're enjoying these pranks are just absolutely lying. I feel like they had to square up in a sense. They had to put on this armor and this harder shell in order to acclimate to the world that they grew up in. And so a part of them just got like pushed down the sensitive part because that probably got made fun of. And then they were like, oh, okay, learned this is funny. This is how I receive love in these dynamics is by going along with these pranks. And am I probably projecting? Sure. Mayhaps.
Perhaps, yes.
But I don't know. I really don't understand how that mean spiritedness could feel good to anyone, genuinely.
Not all practical jokes are mean spirited. I just
No,
have a
this is
hard time.
true.
But also
There are lighthearted,
I
funny
think there are
pranks.
empaths and sensitive people out there that don't know they are because they're numb. And that is unfortunately one of the side effects of repression or like not really knowing how sensitive you are. You just think it's all you.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
go numb. I was numb emotionally when I moved out here 21 years ago. And it was my goal to feel again, but I had to go somewhere where I felt safe, 3,000 miles away from everyone I ever knew, to feel and to like turn those feelings back on. And then along with that came a whole bunch of stuff that was hard. Turning your feelings back on after not having them accessible for so long as you survived and you grew up and everything. It's a journey. And it's challenging, but man, the gifts of it on the other side of the work, can't even describe it. Can't even tell you what you would even get out of it. You just have to experience it to understand it. But it feels a lot better now. And I can have feelings. I'm allowed to have feelings. And all feelings are welcome. There's no spiritual bypassing here. It's like you have the good ones, you have the negative ones, and all in between, and they're all valid. But the thing is, don't attach, don't identify, don't keep it. Just let it happen, and that's it. Just let it go. Let it have the experience. Being present, being in the moment. That will help.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I kind of want to circle back to something you mentioned at the beginning of that thought. How I guess the unguarded empathy can quickly turn towards ourselves and how we can think that it's all us and that it's our was going to say our own fault.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I felt something in my nervous system when that got mentioned, and I felt like, oh yeah. But now
Is it hiding a little bit? You're like, did it like ping a little bit?
yeah, maybe. I feel like that was my experience for a long time, I guess. Maybe this is about my social anxiety that I feel like I've had for most of my life. It's really, really calmed down the last few years. But I felt so anxious when I was younger all the time. And I felt like I was constantly like not enough for people, or like I wasn't accepted, or like I wasn't doing enough for other people. And so that was part of like my unhealed empathy and codependence, is trying anything that I could, like completely overexerting myself to make the people around me happy, or just to support them in really ridiculous ways that were totally unnecessary and so much more work on my end, and to receive very little back. But
Mm-hmm.
I think I thought for a long time that that was all me, and that everything that I was feeling, all of that anxiety and all of these really intense emotions, were all mine. Just talking about this, I'm reflecting back and I'm like, I wonder how much of that really was other people's stuff that I was picking up on
Mm-hmm.
versus what truly is my own. I don't know. It's just weird to like sit with that and to think back on that.
I think those are great questions to ask.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love that. I agree. What comes up? Can I share
Yes,
what comes
please.
up for me when you speak about that?
Mm-hmm.
Because recently, because I've been doing all this investigation to like generational cycles in my lineage on both sides and everything, I started looking at, from a young age, I've had suicidal inclinations or desires or ideation or whatever from like for sure 7th grade, off and on from 7th grade till actually last month. Even still, like sometimes I'm like, it's just too much, it's too heavy, all of this is still there. Mind you, I committed in my 20s to never do it because I've seen the fallout. I've lost people, so I would never do that to my family because I love them too much, right? And also, I'm not going to fucking back out of a challenge, you know. But also, so what I started doing was actually asking, like, wait a second, was that actually mine? Where did I first start hearing about that? And it was in my family. My parents, people in my extended family, it was there. I've witnessed the loss, and I've also heard them upset and wanting to. Like the threats. I just want to kill myself. I just want this all to be done. You guys to be. All of the shit that comes with it. It was just sort of there. And I'm like, did I absorb it? I'm like, of course I did, because I was trying to carry it. I was trying to make them happy so they would want to stay alive, so that they wouldn't leave me, because there was such this
Mm.
like fear of loss that if I don't make them happy, they're going to die. And so eventually, when my needs weren't being met and I became angry, I wanted them to die. And so I'm like, oh, wow. Because, and even now, the insight that I had was, I'm like, okay, good to, noted, that actually might not even be mine, because I know, because I've been doing this for so long, I know my soul is here to be in joy. I've had so many lifetimes where I've been a healer, a fixer, a political person, an educator, a priestess, you fucking name it. I've done a lot of service gigs, you know? And this one is for me. I am going to heal me. No one else. I can show you how to heal yourself, but I am here to be in joy. So, if my soul is here to be in joy, why the hell is my mind telling me to take myself out? That is not mine. I refute, I return, not mine. I totally got that from my family. I'm so sorry it was so hard for everyone. It was really fucking hard. We've been through so much. And it's like, I get it. I get it. But that is not mine. I no longer identify or relate to that, because I am here to live, to experience the beauty and the love and possibility and the actual magic of being a human right now. So I feel like I'm finally like at the bottom of that. I finally found the core of the fear of the loss and absorbing it as the empath from my family to help. My mind was like, I'm just going to help them carry this. Right? I didn't actually know what it meant to like wear it and put it in my body and how it would affect me the rest of my life. But at this point, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm not afraid of death. I'm good anytime I go. Right? If the universe says, Nikki, it's time to punch out, I'm like, peace, love you. I'll be on the other side. But I'm not going to like do anything to like make it happen. Because I just want to have as much joy as I can. So that's where I'm at. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's super helpful. Really quick side note. I am just laughing at the thought of calling past lives gigs. Like, oh, yeah. I worked this gig one time. I was a priest back in 1547. Let me tell you. What a gig that was. That's so funny. So amazing word choice with that. That tickled me.
It just flowed out. It was just like, yeah, it was a gig.
I wanted to...
That was an oracle. It was amazing.
I was going to say something after you mentioned it, but I'm like, no, she's still going with the flow. I'm not going to interrupt now. I'm glad I got to say that, though. It's so funny. But yeah, no, that's helpful. And that also gives me hope that, you know, with space and time and continued curiosity and awareness for this, I can also break these generational ties, because the anxiety in my family is, from what I'm understanding, is definitely generational. And it's been passed down, especially through my mom's side, but also through my dad's side, just kind of in different ways and different flavors.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. A question that came up from when you were sharing that. For the empath out there, and we did kind of already touch on this, where, you know, like if someone walks in the room, you can ask yourself, oh, was I feeling this before they walked in the room? Like stuff like that, I feel like is helpful to distinguish what's yours and what's not. But what are some helpful tools or signs or ways to figure out, I guess maybe more on this like generational and ancestral wavelength of what's yours and what isn't? Like, what does it feel like in your system comparing what's yours and what isn't yours? Like, how can you tell?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to a lot of it is feeling. And so, which is why feeling is really important, because that also leads to your intuition and your connection to being embodied. And your body has all of the memories of everything that's ever happened to you. Your brain does not. It's somewhere in there, but it's not accessible unless you're a savant of some sort. The questions help direct it. So as you're exploring, collecting data of your programs, of the system, of the cycles, of all of the stuff, you learn to sense where it comes from. You ask the question, when was the first time I heard that phrase, or I felt this feeling, or I observed this? So it's like a lot of it is like going and doing archaeological digs into your past and being your own detective to kind of find it. But ultimately, so like I knew the spousal resentment wasn't mine. Okay, this is how I knew. I felt it. I was fucking pissed. Right? So I knew I was experiencing something. I was feeling something.
And
something
the
was
spousal,
activated.
Sorry, the spousal...
Fuck, I did it again, didn't I? Resentment? Spousal resentment program?
Yeah, no, I'm the one tripping up on resentment. Just for clarification for the listener, because I don't think you've mentioned that yet, but like the spousal resentment has been one of the main programs you've been looking at recently.
I thought I did mention... Oh, it was during our side reel.
Yeah.
Was it during the side reel? And I'm just confusing it.
If anybody... Quick plug... If anyone is interested in hearing Nicki share and process live some very deep generational stuff that she's been looking at and working through a very heavy day that she had recently, we have that over on our Patreon.
Indeed.
If you're interested, want to go listen to that. Sorry, yes. Continue.
Thank you so much. So the spousal resentment is a program that I've been looking at recently. And when I started to feel it, I'm like, when I recognize, I'm like, okay, I see it. But then I also recognize that I do the same thing, right? So I'm like, fuck. Like, I can't be mad at him for something that I'm also doing, because that's part of the issue of projection and like making it everybody else's problem outside of you. So I was taking accountability, right? But then as I was thinking about it, and I asked myself, I said, okay, where have I seen this? And then I saw my mom relating to my dad. Anytime he got sick, she would get really upset or mad and like all of this like stuff. And then I watched her mother, because from stories that I've heard from the family and my mom, how her mom was very unhappy and resentful in her marriage because she felt stuck and stifled and like at home, like she wasn't allowed to get a job and she wasn't allowed to do it. It was very, very traditional, back in the 1950s. And so she like helped tell stories, and so then I started seeing it go backwards, right? And I'm like, oh, this is one of the patterns. So because I know my relationship with my husband is different than anything I've ever seen before, because that's what we decided. This, we are us, this is how we're going to communicate and how we're going to work, and we're going to talk about things. And so yeah, it felt foreign. If something feels foreign, like it doesn't line up with your intentions or your agreements and your boundaries, then there is a very good likelihood that it is the past expressing itself in your present for you to process for your ancestors, because that's why we're here, partly to deal with the karma, to deal with all of that. So and I was like, okay, need to start processing this. So I start calling in the tools and working on the things and having my friends like do body work with me and all this kind of like other stuff to bring it to the surface so I can clear it out, which is what led to that terrible, awful day that you can go listen to on the side reel. But ultimately, it was an amazing healing opportunity. So it's like once you start doing the work and you start to recognize and discern what is yours and what is not, it just sort of becomes like oh, okay. It's still there, so it is partly mine in my like genetically speaking, but I also full-heartedly believe that I can heal that from doing the DNA healing repair meditation that I was guided to, that I can teach people, that I use myself all the time, so I feel it. And then when I start looking, I see things, that's how they communicate with me. So it's sort of like, it's a spiritual process with my healing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like how you expressed it as it feels foreign.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I've gotten to really feel my truer self, the spirit underneath all of the programs that I was inundated with as a youth,
Mm-hmm.
those things that once felt like my entire being, my native being,
Mm-hmm.
they did start to feel more foreign. But it's really confusing when they still feel native and you don't have that deeper awareness and connection with who you are at a soul level. And that just makes all of the programs and this whole matrix illusion of
Mm-hmm.
of the ego living life, it makes it seem so much more real. And it can be really hard to figure out what is yours and what is someone else's when you don't have that deep connection with your core being. I guess, along with boundaries, one of the greatest coping tools for being an empath and being an empathetic person, I guess, is maybe meditation.
100%.
Just continuing to grow your awareness of your true self
Mm-hmm.
and to continue to grow more and more into alignment with it and to learn about it as much as possible and
You
to
can
feel
also release what isn't yours in that space as well.
Yeah, that's really where all the work
You
happens.
could do really cool ceremony and like visualizations of releasing all the foreign things, the things that were given to you by your environment, your coaches, your teachers, your parents, your siblings, everything. If you're like, not mine, boop, throwing it down the chute, going to the furnace. So yeah, meditation for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything else that...
There's one thing.
Okay.
As a recovering codependent, who is highly sensitive and was trained to be attuned to everybody else's feelings and needs, when you begin to have boundaries, most people who are going to have a problem with it. And those are the ones that have benefited from you not having boundaries, but also holding them and detaching, because that's part of the process of like, oh, that's not mine. You can detach from that. I don't have to feel that. I can hold space, but I'm not going to absorb it. I can resonate totally, but that's not mine, right? And so I used to feel that made me cold, right? Like I don't care anymore because I'm not like bending over backwards or ingratiating myself or trying to fix it, right? I'm just holding space to listen and hold up a light and be like, what do you want to do with that? You know, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not responsible for it. So my programming said, I'm a terrible person for a long time. You don't care about them. Like even like, talking with like family sometimes and be like, you can choose to help them and enable them and they're going to continue this pattern, or you can hold a boundary and be like, I cannot help you with this. Good luck. I can support you in other ways if you want to talk or something, but I can't give you money. I can't do this, It can feel wrong. So practicing new tools and coping mechanisms in the beginning, as you're getting used to it, is going to feel wrong because it is wrong to the program, to the mind or the ego that's running it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so just kind of have that awareness.
Yeah.
You're going to feel wrong, but keep it up if it's good, if it's a healthy boundary, if it's like a real boundary and not like control.
Yeah. That's a great reminder. And it kind of makes sense that it would happen that way because, I mean, in your example, if you went 10, 20 years giving to everyone around you without anyone asking and you just anticipating what they all need, for you to one day, to what to them seems like all of a sudden, you say, I am sorry, I cannot do that for you. It's like, ooh, wait a minute. You've done this the whole time that you've been alive.
Mm-hmm.
This is very strange. This is very weird. But because you've had that program in you as well, you also have a voice inside of yourself saying the same thing. This is weird. What am I doing? This is really bizarre. I used to be really giving.
I don't like being the villain. And it turned me into a villain, at least to one person in particular. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. Because Brene Brown says, I'd rather you disappoint someone else than yourself.
Good advice.
It is. It is.
We have to live with us the whole time.
Indeed. Indeed. And I choose to feel good and do things that make me feel good, that bring about joy. I choose to have people around me that are respectful and can see me and be, respect is really important, apparently.
So important.
Yeah. But yeah, it feels wrong. And it feels really bad as an empath to heal some of these things sometimes. But it makes you a better giver.
It really does.
It does. And it feels good. So, yeah, I think that was the last little thing that wanted to be said.
Cool. I have a closing question.
Great.
For both of us to answer.
Sweet.
To wrap up this episode.
Yay.
What is your absolute favorite thing about being an empathic, highly sensitive person on planet Earth right now?
I get to experience magic. The synchronicity, being connected to spirit and having messages and visions and knowings. I freaking delight in it. Like it makes me high. And it's just so effortless. And I have learned to trust myself. I do know my mind can lie. Okay. It's very good at it. Trying to gaslight me or make me feel bad or do things. But I take it with a grain of salt. I listen to it because, you gotta. It's important to give it some space. But it is not all that I listen to. I have learned to listen to my body. I've learned to listen to other people's bodies. I've learned to listen to spirit. And being an empath is kind of like a direct line to the universe. Like it was just like, hey guys, what's up? And then hey, and then I get the downloads and I get to feel things so deeply. And it's like when you get on a certain vibration or like a frequency, it's like you're on drugs. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, that's my favorite thing. Is the knowing, the hearing, the seeing, the feeling, the gifts of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've just learned to treat for the negative side effects when you're around disrespectful people.
Yeah.
Or that don't value your time or what you do. They take you for granted. Those are the pruning. I pruned those kinds of people that make me feel badly about myself. So, yeah, those are my favorite. What's your favorite thing about being an empath?
Awesome. I do just want to say really quickly.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, that really is one of the gifts of being empathic and highly sensitive, because I think my answer was geared a lot more towards like the humanness of the experience and like connecting with others, which I'll get to in a minute.
That's super cool too.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, that's one of the blessings of it, is that we have a more direct line to the universe, like you said. Like we have more opportunity to receive higher guidance. It almost feels like a cheat code in a way sometimes. Like to just have like, oh, if I'm confused about something and I need an answer, I can meditate and I can go to my inner landscape and I can just like tune in with my core and then just like ask the question and I can receive guidance. Like through feeling or through auditory things, because sometimes spirit will directly talk to me or in visions. It's just this beautiful magical playground, like you said. It's just the magic of it. And that, I think that really should be emphasized. Like that really feels like one of the biggest beautiful perks of being an empathic, highly sensitive soul in a human existence. But yeah, I think my answer was geared more towards the physical realm, I guess. To me, being empathic and feeling things so deeply is the magic of being alive. That's why we're here.
To feel.
To feel.
Right?
And it's really bizarre when I'm having moments where I'm just absolutely breaking down and crying and I feel absolutely fucking awful or sad or depressed, and like really truly feeling it to its highest extent. There's still something deep within me that's going, thank you so much for just the fact that I get to feel this. Like it feels so bizarre, because it's beautiful when I'm having glorious, happy moments, but it also is there in some of the worst moments. But that is why we're here, is to feel, because they're really as horrible and difficult and disheartening and saddening as life can be here sometimes. The magic of being able to experience all of it, the full spectrum of all emotion and all experiences, and to be able to be here with other humans and to connect on such a deep level together. Whether it's watching a movie in a theater as a group and having a shared collective laughter to a hilarious scene.
In theaters. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Or just like the quiet silence watching something so sad happen. There's really no words to describe it, but that to me, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I'm glad that I get to experience the full absolute spectrum of feeling, because that to me is what being a human is, and what being alive is we get to experience all of it. And that to me, no matter what anybody has said in my past, and no matter what society may still continue to say, being this sensitive is truly an absolute fucking gift and 100%. A superpower beyond belief.
It is. It is. And thank you for saying that too, because I really resonate with that. And we as humans in our incarnated state, we forget that when we're back at home at source, being connected to all, we have all. There's no separation. So happy, sad, angry, lust, guilt, jealousy, all of it is happening. It's all there. But as humans, we get like special cocktails of emotions. We get like these special combinations and like different kinds of assemblies and like all it's all so variety.
There's nothing like it.
There really isn't. And it's like a little bit of this, a lot of that. And it's like this is the experience. These are the lessons. So I am here for it. And you're right, even in those really hard moments, it is how you feel alive, which is why I feel like a lot of people like horror movies, because it makes their heart race. It gets them in the present, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, it's intense, but it's sometimes because people are so numb also that they need those extreme feelings to feel something.
Yeah.
But as a sensitive being,
I can't do horror movies at all.
Oh, not anymore. I used to growing up. Again, I was numb.
Yeah, same.
Right? So, but then once I started feeling again, like once I got into it and I actually thought meditation would make me less sensitive. It did not. It actually accelerated it. It expanded it. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. I have a really good imagination. I don't need to see horror movies. No thanks. No.
Life can get hard enough.
Yes. I could just watch the news and that's horror. Like I don't need the make 'em ups. So
valid. Understood.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. I love that perspective. And that's really awesome.
I love your perspective.
Hey, thanks. So yeah, this was amazing. Thank you for this conversation. So much better than our last attempt.
Oh my God, I know. Do we
so
want to share
great.
that real quick?
If you want to.
Okay. For the listeners, Nicki and I, last week, we were attempting to record this very episode, and we got about 45 minutes into the recording before I realized I didn't plug the recorder in. So we were getting laptop audio instead of the microphone audio. And it ended up being a blessing in disguise, because this conversation just feels so much more open and loving and so much more aligned. I personally feel so much more connected and grounded, and like we were still able to express everything that we were talking about before,
Yes.
but this feels a lot more like natural and open, because we were both funky.
We were so
like
funky.
I had just moved like
we
2 days
up.
before.
Look at
I was
us.
so
We're doing
tired.
the work. Go us. I'm like, yeah, we did it. We're here. And I love when it occurred to you and it dawned on you and you're like, oh no. I'm like, okay, here we are. It's all good.
Yep.
This is exactly how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
We got to work on our adaptability and no shame, no guilt. Just be like, hey, Spirit said this is not the time to record this episode. You know?
It was not.
It was not.
And they were right.
They were
this
right.
This one is much better.
So much better. We are in a completely different space, and this has been just such a joy, where I felt like it was trudging uphill.
Oh yeah, that one was, it was
not.
We hadn't had
everything.
any experience like that before.
You've never forgotten to do that, which is why it was
so
very
weird.
odd. Which is, I'm like, now you get a free pass. Like, that's fucking human error. It happens. And
Thank you.
I don't think it was your fault. Like, I think it was just the energy of the day.
Yeah.
For
sure.
And plus, being so sensitive, and because we've been practicing that as well, and listening and tuning in and just going with the flow. These are the benefits of this kind of work, is the adaptive nature, the being able to tap into resource, your resilience. You're like, okay, we'll try again. And we just like, that was a great dress rehearsal. That was great. Super. We got some good stuff out. We'll do it again.
Yeah. If that happened 5 years ago, that would have completely knocked me out. But within 5 minutes, I was like, yeah, you're right. That's great. Let's move on.
You really did bounce back from that too. I was really glad.
Because I really wanted to, like, my initial reaction was for sure like a really heavy guilt and shame program that came up. And I'm like, my God, idiot. How could you have, I wasn't actually saying that, but like, that's what it felt like when it happened. It's like, oh my God, like you completely like, it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. Like I just completely like fucked the whole thing up.
Which
and
is
there were going to
also
be like major repercussions.
Which is
But no.
also hard for the empath to deal with those kinds of setbacks or those faux pas.
Yeah,
Like,
that
really
really would have been
hard.
so intense.
And because you have
Before.
connected to your resiliency and yourself and holding space and compassion, all of the things you've been practicing, you were able to deal and let it go really fast.
And because you were also empathic, you were able to acknowledge and see
Oh,
what was happening.
immediately, I'm like, nope. Mm-mm.
And you were able to provide space for me so that way I could remain calm and to know that I don't need to guilt and shame myself right now.
Nope.
And that feels so much better. And we, less than a week later, here we are, problem solved.
Amazing. It was so much fun. And I love how this is coming right before next week's episode.
Following your intuition.
I love this. Intuition. Following your excitement. And you got to be embodied and feeling things. And as an empath, this is just, we're going to get into it. I want to start talking about it right now. Like, I'm going to save it. It is going to be a lot of fun talking about intuition and coming online and learning to trust yourself. And I think this is a good segue out of, like, the empathy, because the empathy really helps to serve your intuition.
Yes.
So
I am also very excited about that.
So
yeah, thank you all for joining in today. If you are interested in hearing more from us, you can head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/NTHP podcast, all lowercase. The links will be in the description below. Yeah, we have some extra goodies over there for all that are interested. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Until next week, everyone. Peace and blessings.
Bye.